Sidewalk thing.
Oh.
Yep, I got it.
So we can bring the CDC meeting to order. It was advertised as special start time today, on November 16th at 4:30 p.m. there, you know, we wish. So we got all our council members here present, one remote online moments. And the first item of business is our Public Works Services Center update. John, you gonna
Yes,
do that?
I'll do it.
Okay.
So I've got some photos for you to look at. First, Building A is that houses the Public Works and Services staff. And the first 7 photos are from where we're at with the Building A. Go to the second picture. That's the first floor looking out at the counter, the front counter. So that would be like a staff member looking out. Rock up, and they're doing some painting. And if I basically turned 180 degrees, now you're looking down where staff members would be stationed in cubicles. I see a door open there as well. Then on the third photo, you see another picture now with the doors of the offices, doors in. And then the next photo is actually in the conference room, looking through the conference room doors at the front counter. This is looking from as a citizen coming in. They would probably a direction. And the next photo of Building A. This is on second floor, so the public services is up here. They have not sheetrocked in the walls yet. They have been doing some, as you can see on the next photo, you can see the offices on the second floor of Building A, so some of the doors are in, obviously sheetrocking on that side. The next view is Building B. Building B is a maintenance shop, and so the contractor started to install the metal stud framing, drywalls. So if you go to the following photo, you look inside the shop, you see the metal studs inside the shop. This would be looking to the east. And if you flip that over, looking down one of the bays, inflation in, and just the metal studs, so sheetrock hasn't gone in.
This is where the trucks come in.
Yeah.
To that one big door in the back.
Yeah, they have a couple of spots where they can come in. Some of it could be for storage too as well. Then the next building is Building E. That's the storage building. And they completed the concrete walls. You can see those around the perimeter. They've begun to bring material in to inside, and once they get that to grade, they'll be able to pour the concrete floor on that building. And then Building D is the material storage that has not begun yet. If you open up the last photo, that's kind of an aerial view from a drone looking down on the site. So you see Building F, which is just, you can see it looks like a kind of a skeleton kind of a thing. That's the plinths are being poured this week, the rest of them, and then after 7 days, they'll be strong enough to start bringing the superstructure up on them. Then there's a pile of dirt. Shows you about where Building D is going to go. So I'll keep moving on. That's just kind of the general overview of where we're at on the buildings. Water is about 95% complete. They have the fire lines to complete, which is one of the next orders of business to do. Sewer mains, like 99% complete. Storms, about 95% complete. PSE gas, we finished the design on that. PSE has finished the design. We've given them the easement that's necessary for them to do the work. Site. They'll be coming out first week or so, or 2 weeks of December. They'll be installing the gas main along the frontage of Building A in Pierce County right away. Contractor will be installing the gas conduit on the parcel, and then PSE will then run the gas main through the conduit. That'll be middle of December. Conduits for phone and cable still have yet to be installed. They are not installed yet. And then today we had a pre-paving meeting. We were hoping to get the first phase, the west side of the parcel paved. But with all the rains that we've had and the weather changing, we've made the decision not to pave this year. We are going to basically do everything except the paving, and we are going to shut the project down. Once we're done with that, we think by that we feel will be, February deadline for that, but then we won't pave until the paving window. So we either get adequate weather window to pave, or the paving window opens in April. So currently, our RFI totals at 258. Change orders are at 48. We have a total approved change order cost at $786 and change, facing 787. About the 5% total that we were estimating. Our change order budget, we can actually take some money over from design contingency to get it to about $800,000. But we have potential change orders about another $256,000 plus whatever we may get from building D foundation yet to come. So we're still in that $1.1 million range that we think that we estimated gave to you, I think, a couple of months ago. That hasn't. That's dollar figure. Working days, again, we started with 270 working days. Currently, we're at 316 approved, which is essentially the day we're at right now. We're about 319, 320 days into it. So we're at 100% of the approved working days, but we still have change orders that will increase those working days to that February 8th deadline date that we're at right now. We do believe that we can that date for everything but the paving. So we are still feel comfortable with that February 8th timeline. Again, the budget right now, we spent out of the $20 million for the project, we spent $14,379. That's as of October 25th. So we're about 78% complete. Then we have two more consulting. We have the second amended consultant contracts coming to you tonight, right after I finish speaking on this one. It was a little while ago. We did the first amendment, which I thought would be end, but because of the change orders that are extending our project deadline, they have now increased. We have second amendments. I thought at the time, I think it was a couple months ago, I estimated probably about 80,000, but it's going to be closer to 200,000 for these professional services to get us to February. I'll talk more about that in just a minute. That is our update. Any questions on that?
I think we're progressing nicely. Is there going to be a problem with not letting the blacktop be in there until April for all the trucks going back and forth?
So we're not going to put blacktop down. What we're doing is we're just putting crushed rock down. So we're going to put, we have crushed rock down on the west side. And we're going to rock that, not all of it, because we know as the rains come, it moves the fines out. So what we'll try to do is we want to save all of our material, not have to pay more for it. So we'll put down probably about 4 inches of the 10. Then we're going to park all of the vehicles that are now on the east side. And they're preventing us from working a lot of that site. So once we get everything moved over, all of their stuff, vehicles over to the west side, then they can have more access to the east side and complete that part of the project. So paving it was actually doing the same thing of getting everybody over on the asphalt, park there, coming to work, then go into the buildings, finish your stuff up. Since we can't get the paving done, the thing is that if we went and just said, let's suppose we said, you're paving it. If you don't get that compaction just right, the pavement won't last very long. So it'll take a pavement that may last, 15, 20 years, and it'll start falling apart, under 5. Not benefiting anybody, right? Yeah. Exactly. So it's better to just do it all right and wait for the weather to change now. We were hoping that we'd have a warm and a dryish November, but it was kind of more of a hope. But sometimes that happens. We've done it in the past, but we just had too much rain recently to risk at this point losing that kind of.
It all makes sense. Just was concerned about.
Yeah.
With your vehicles moving back and forth.
Yeah, so they'll just be parking over there and then walking and then doing the work of staying off of the crushed rock area because they'll be working now on the east side of the park.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Questions, Kelly?
Oh, I'm good.
Thank you very much. So we'll move along. I guess all of our questions will probably crop up in number 1 there again on your resolution for authorizing a services agreement. Yep. Okay.
Ready?
You just kind of
Yeah,
explained it a little
absolutely.
bit.
Yeah, I did. So on this one, ARC is requesting another $74,000 to get to the finish line. And they are active every day. We are working them hard to get to our side of the deal. RH2 Engineering has $30,000, which kind of popped out. Their explanation is that there's been a lot more work requested of them in the past. They anticipate that may happen to get to the finish line here. So they're putting that number in there. Doesn't mean that they're going to use it, but there's been a lot of, we've had to do a lot of maybe defending ourselves, defending our change orders, make sure we're not paying more than we should. And sometimes we have to go back and have engineers break it all apart. And so we've had we did save, quite a bit. There was a $200,000 change order. We broke down to $30,000 to the city. So we saved quite a bit on that one, but obviously we don't want to be spending a lot of our money to prove those guys wrong.
Right.
It's their job to be accurate in their requests. We did talk to them again that if we get another one like that, you're paying the engineering bill. So they're fully aware of that one. But that 30,000 there, I don't think we're going to be hitting that hard. But they put it in there to protect themselves if something does pop up. So there's not a third amendment.
No surprise, yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly. So that's probably the numbers there that kind of jump out to you the most. But ARC is the charge of our design team, point person with the contractor.
There's another piece there. ARC at 74 and RH2 at 30 and
Right, then there's some other ones like KPFF for 6,000 and cider buyers for 3,600, and those are small ticket items. They weren't the big ones.
Sure.
So didn't see that one.
Can you help me with the ARC? Because I'm like trying to understand one, why we're late, and 2, why we're paying somebody who was supposed to make sure we're not late more money when we're late. So I'm just confused, especially when it comes to the architect. And it seemed to me like a lot of our problems were because of the steel building and the foundation. And am I missing something here?
Probably not everything, but I don't know all the ins and outs on all of the different elements that to answer you. I would say this, that KPFF is the structural engineer. They did take the hit on all of the costs to fix their problems. They did not charge us. So, and you see them here with just $6,000 in this one, but they were the ones that were tasked to solve their problems of the structural elements on the project. Now, as long as we moved on, I mean,
well, how did they have problems though? I guess it's kind
How
of
did they have the problems?
a detailed discussion, but
Yeah.
sorry, it's like, why did KPFF have a problem?
Fair enough. Can you give an answer on that one?
Yeah, if we're talking specifically about the foundations and the metal building issue again, is that what we're talking about specifically?
I'm trying to figure out where the overages are and kind of trying to understand, like, Councilmember McClemens is like, huh?
Yeah. So obviously that's the one that initially created the biggest delay in the project, was rectifying issues.
Sure.
And it was also the highest cost change orders.
Yeah.
The reason that we had that problem is that KPFF, as part of the original design team, designed the foundations, but the steel building design was furnished by the contractor after we awarded them the bid.
It didn't match.
The problem with that is that when they brought their steel building design forward, it didn't exactly match up with the foundation design.
And I thought we covered all that in our last iteration of our amendment.
Some of it, but some of that still continues as we work through each of the buildings. But in addition to that, the longer obviously we all know the longer the project drags on, and the support that we need to go with that continues,
Yeah.
we're going beyond what we
right.
originally budgeted.
Yeah, and that's
for.
where I get kind of confused, not knowing how the public works projects exactly work, kind of thing, because you have your scope of building whatever you're building, and your tasks take the amount of time.
Mhm.
So, it doesn't matter whether it really the calendar time is like 3 years or 2 years or 1 year. It takes you a certain amount of time to build the building. Spread it out, but it's still the same amount of time. Right? It's just longer duration. So, how do you get into a situation where, ARC is saying, oh, I want an extra $74,000 for what? Because they have to go back and redesign something.
Well, so ARC and their subs, but primarily ARC, they are the daily lead on the effort for the project. So they're involved in everything and helping coordinate that.
Yeah.
And I think probably what would help illustrate this a little bit more is if we brought with us our list of, then we could show you a little bit more detail as to what else they've been having to work on that was beyond their scope. Consultants, when they typically give us a number for what construction support is going to cost, they'll estimate X number of RFIs, X number of change orders and all that.
Yep.
Pretty sure, have to go back and look, but pretty sure we've exceeded what their assumptions were for this project.
Yeah.
And so that's where the extra cost starts to come in, because they're going beyond that original scope.
And in my thinking, I would think that was captured under our last amendment that we did. So we kind of we were true at that point. We're not expecting to have another one come forward.
And the last amendment, and again, I'd have to go back and double check the language, but the last amendment I think was primarily covering what was beyond the scope that had to do with the foundation adjustments for buildings A, B. I think it was just A and B. But now we've got additional effort that's gone in for E, F, plus we're anticipating D. And so I think it's something that we could certainly dig into that a little bit more to kind of craft a better response than maybe what we're able to provide right now.
And maybe in my mind, it might be good to kind of, at this point, really update the full council, because I know a lot of the other council members are interested in, they've been kind of giving us a little bit of me being the chair, they're poking me saying, hey, what are you doing over there?
Sure.
I need to know about all this stuff. So
yeah, we'd be happy to do that.
Maybe if possible, I don't know if we can update them that kind of a situation at a workshop situation if possible.
Yeah.
So that,
this goes back to July of 21. So when did the last one go to before this?
Yeah, I'd have to check, but I think it was for time beyond that. So we can certainly provide that update to the council. I don't, and sooner rather than later would probably be better. I just don't know how that fits with the remainder, the schedule for the remainder.
What are you saying, Kelly?
Would it be appropriate to have ARC represent their interest as well? I mean, I'm confused. I mean, unless you or John or somebody on staff dropped the ball here, it's our architect and our management that we're contracting tens of thousands of dollars for that should help us avoid these sorts of problems. And I'm confused because we already paid them once. Now we're going to pay them again. And I get it that the calendar has gone on longer, but are we getting more of something besides more calendar? Because it's not our problem the calendar's longer. It's somebody someplace has made the calendar longer. I don't think it's the city of Bonney Lake. So why is the city of Bonney Lake paying for the extended period of performance? Typically, I have a management reserve of 15% for this exact problem. And, I don't know, there's, I just look at this and I get concerned about who's paying for what. It's okay to kind of go, yeah, things were out of control. We'll give you this. But now this is going to be another $74,000. And I was like shocked to see that they're going to the well again. Yeah, I mean, I just was like, wow, it's especially for the architect, right? And the construction management is like,
they're the ones that designed it, right? So, if it's, additional scope and what have you, that's completely understandable. people need to come forward and say, well, we did it this way, but we thought this way, so we needed to do some redesign. That's appropriate enough. Those kind of tasks.
Well, if it's agreeable to you all, we can certainly make contact with ARC. I know they've expressed in the past that they'd be willing to come down, and then we can get on the agenda to dive into this a little bit deeper.
We love to give consultants a hard time. I'll be nice to them, but at least, because you guys, like Mr. McCombs was saying, it's, you're not directly managing it. You hired the other folks to do it, so
yeah. Well, I want to make sure
I'm just wondering because people are going to ask me, and if I was explaining this to somebody up my chain, I definitely would be asking these exact same questions, right? So I think it's okay. Nobody's going to get their feelings hurt, and we're all going to be, we all understand how contracts work.
Yeah. No, I understand where you're coming from. I can work with John maybe to try and get on the agenda for which one?
We're getting pretty tight.
December 7th.
December 7th, we should be able to put something together for that pretty easily.
Yeah, whatever works, whatever the timeline works for you guys. I don't know whether you have to do it this year, which is fine,
I think I'd prefer to go ahead and get it done, and that way, I don't want there to be any, any confusion or any time, lost for you all considering what's going on.
Yeah, it'll be great to get, in my mind, the rest of the council updated anyways, and get them into they're really interested in details, so it makes it a lot easier, because we do have some, we'll have a new council member at that point, I think, maybe I forget the 20. So then,
yeah, absolutely.
Less of an issue when it goes for a vote kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So we want to do discussion, action on the 7th, discussion on the 7th.
If that works, discussion and then action on the 14th, is that workable?
So for both of these.
For both these items, item 1 and item 2, is that okay?
Yeah. That makes sense.
So item 2, just in general, they're just providing the services for us to manage. They're not involved with the. You got to pay them because they have to hang around longer.
Right, and but again, that's back to that, longer thing, right? It's kind of like, hey, if there's nothing to do, you go home.
Right.
That's what contractors are about, and you got to pay them for showing.
So this one's the same.
Yes, please. Yeah. That makes sense, Mr. McClemens, Councilmember there?
Certainly does.
Thank you very much. Well, moving along to item number 3 then for authorization sound instrument fleet radios. Cover that one. Jack is.
Yep.
Hey.
I'll do that one.
All right.
Yes, Agenda Bill 164. We are looking at actually outfitting our existing fleet with two-way radio systems. This is something we've actually had in the past, but we went away from that. Now we decided that it's time to go back to that, especially with the advent with the EOC and just being able to have the capability to communicate with police services and fire.
So we didn't do that all before because a couple of years ago you brought this forward.
Brought it forward a couple of years ago, and actually at that time the money was not in the budget. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we went through the process, but just didn't have it there. So
right, exactly right. And so we actually were approved for $63,000, $63,325 for both 2021, 2022. And so we actually went out to bid, advertised, and we had the lowest bidder or the lowest valued bidder at $98,244. But the way the contract is set up is that we are only going to go up to the 63. So we basically do a work order. We'll outfit it to match that number. We won't go above it. And that's going to address about 45 of our fleet vehicles out in the field. And like I said, it'll give us the capability in the future to start communicating with PD. Not at that time. This is more just for the installation and install of the vehicles and a base station antenna.
Okay, so clarify with me why we need this. They all have cell phones. And this discussion before. And what do we need to do? Double coverage. I mean, they can call the emergency number for PD and they get right through if they need to.
Sure. Two-way radios is going to be a lot more reliable of a network. I mean, right now they're driving, if you can imagine like the snow event this year,
Right.
they'll be driving the cars and trying to dial at the same time might be kind of difficult. This way they're actually going to have a radio that they can actually listen to, actually just hit it and talk to them directly with it. It's just a lot more convenient to do that. But then also, we talked to the regional PD or regional emergency services, Puyallup, RPD, fire chiefs. They have a specific channel that they can actually communicate with each other with. And once we start defining our EOC, it would be convenient to be able to communicate with each other like that. So this is going to give us that capability. And yeah, we do have the cell phones, but that would be more beneficial for us, I think.
And, just to tack onto that,
And-
as we look at Sumner Grade Fire, when we lost the fiber optics on the lines, it also disabled or severely hampered our cell phone.
We're working to solve that problem that when we just passed, satellite. No,
That
Can-
was internet.
That's
Internet only?
just,
Okay.
that's just
Right.
internet.
Okay.
Sherry, we'll get you Sherry.
Sherry?
Sherry,
Councilmember Watson, this was a budgeted item. It was discussed as a decision card with the whole council. So the council voted to move this forward. So you're just seeing the contract tonight. So this is already budgeted. He's only going to the budget amount.
and that was the 63,000. Is that what you guys were talking
Correct.
about?
Yep.
Thank you, Sherry.
But,
So,
yeah.
I had a question. Do we pay for cell phones for a lot of the employees
Hopefully-
that will be using the trucks?
Hopefully everyone,
I
right?
think they all have cell phones.
Yes,
Yeah, I think just about all of our
Provide
public
that.
works staff
Yep.
has a cell phone.
we do.
Smartphone, hopefully, with any luck.
Mhm.
Kind of their
It
bread
is.
and butter.
But they can't text from those phones. They can only make phone calls.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah, and as I understand it, the state law that prohibits people from operating a cell phone and driving, emergency services, first responders,
Yeah.
or whatever are exempt from that if they're talking on.
Right.
Right.
So
Well,
they
police
do
can
have the
use
ability
that.
to still communicate while driving on a two-way
Sure.
radio.
Yeah. But for the most part, it'll be extremely useful when they're actually parked. Highly recommend
Yeah.
that you guys
We're never
discourage
in
their
pursuit or
actively
anything.
communicating,
Yeah.
it's like,
That's definitely-
yeah, if you get the call, hey, we need somebody, it's like, try to find a place to pull off
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
communicate appropriately.
So
Operational.
you say it'll be better, but given the geography of the city, how are we ever going to get adequate radio coverage in the city when like these cell companies have spent 15, 20 years hiding antennas all over everywhere? How are we going to ever come close to that?
Big point on that. Part of that contract, we actually discussed with them the option of doing a study to do repeater locations, and they actually even gave us a bid for those, which is like $14,000. But we're not doing that as part of this contract now. But we have the option to start discussing that with them and actually looking at what that coverage is going to be needed. So that's actually a great point. That's part of this contract too.
So as designed currently, you have one repeater, is that what you're talking
Yeah, we basically going to have an antenna at our public works center right now. And then when we go over to the new public services center, we'll have to discuss how we're going to relocate that. But right now, that's going to give us the coverage we need until we actually get the units out there and we could really see what that is.
Yeah.
Have we had this in the past?
Yes, we did.
It was eons ago though, but that's like, kind of an
Yeah.
apples and oranges thing, right? Because I don't know what they're using. 700 meg, well,
Yeah,
because
it was
Fire
some time
uses
ago.
700 megahertz right now, and I don't know what.
I think it's
I
the
I think the
800.
police use 8.
Correct, Toby.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're at the
police use
800. Absolutely correct. We can't use the existing equipment because that was part of it. We thought we could reuse the existing radio units. We
Yeah.
can't because of our licensing.
Oh, yeah.
Great point.
Yeah, no doubt. So, but with the one repeater here, you're gonna kind of sketchy coverage up to the.
I recall from when the system existed previously, when they had radios previously, it was before my time here, but talking to employees, there were a couple areas that it was a little sketch down at Granger Springs. When you're
Oh,
down
yeah,
that other
yeah.
side of the
Yeah,
hill, it
makes
was a little
sense,
rough.
yeah.
Up around the north end of the lake was a little. So certainly things that we're going to have to prepare for. Jack's done his diligence here if we choose to move forward with propagation. Further refine that, but we will be using the existing frequencies. At that time, the city has been continuing to the now we're outside
The
really my
frequency.
expertise radio stuff, but the existing frequency bands or whatever it is.
Yeah, the band,
Yeah,
the bandwidth frequency.
yeah. So we do have that in place currently. We'll be
Because the only gap that you're covering really is the one cell phone network.
that is definitely the big concern.
So-
Yeah, the main.
Normal communication. I don't know what you guys, well, what do you do today, right?
Yeah, typically,
communication.
I mean,
Cell
well,
phone.
Jeff,
Make phone calls.
Yeah,
speak
we
for
make
you,
phone
but-
calls through the cell phone. They got to pull over and
Sure.
they give me a call. Then I have to
Yeah.
talk to Peter and call him and we coordinate it out. But,
So okay, well, again, I think it's definitely possible that, covering that gap without having the cell towers down might be worth it in some of your operational. So back to what they have today, and they have to maintain a smartphone or what have you, because that's really the backbone of your technology and the way you do your work. Now, being able, especially with the iPad or whatever, you could today, and a lot of organizations use like the radio applications, smartphone, right? So this is Zello, or basically is a simulation of a radio network on top of the data network on the cell network. Is your workforce going to be okay with, because they're going to definitely have two, because you're kind of splitting it up, right? Because you're going to have some in that, I don't know what exactly the concept you guys are going to do with out of the truck scenario, right? You appear to be doing some Bluetooth stuff-ish, kind of ish.
right now they use basically, they'll go to a site, they'll assess it, and they'll pull over and give a phone call. But yeah, they got to find a place to park. They got to get out there, call somebody. This is what they do now. But reliability-wise, we would prefer to use the two-way communication radio units.
Yeah, but if you're in a truck, if you're going out to do a job, you got a water main break, you go out there, you're in your truck, you've been dispatched out there, you're using the, once you get out of the truck, now what are you going to do for communication?
Oh, we'd have to get back in the truck and give a call. But right now, we would just actually use a cell phone.
Right,
Yeah.
Because that's the way that the human's probably going to continue to work. Again, that's back to you're okay with, spending. It's kind of a normal fixed amount because there's not a reoccurring cost associated other than the license, which is minimal.
Mm-hmm.
So once you buy your hardware, you only have. You guys are like okay with that because you're going to get squeezed on the other end of it. So think about what you're spending your money on, right? Because I'm fully confident that the council is going to come back and squeeze you pretty hard from the other end. They're not going to write you an open checkbook. So if this is a tool that you really need, and you're like, okay,
Yeah,
and when you're short on the other end, don't come back to me and say, shit, I shouldn't have bought that radio.
Yeah,
you
for me,
spent money.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. Great points too. And from talking to the PD, both for Puyallup and Brian Jeter, this is definitely the preferred way to go. And it makes sense to me. Even from Pierce County and even Lewis County where I was at, we preferred using these two-way radios. That was just us.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Trust you guys with operation.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And one of the things I hope that we can start demonstrating here more effectively too is that from an emergency perspective, maybe nothing ever happens.
Sure. Yeah.
But if it does, and we don't have some of this in place, it's not gonna be a good thing. And we need to start looking forward. I know you understand. I'm just saying, like, we need to really start looking down the road at these things that may or may not happen and saying, how prepared do we want to be for this?
Yeah, exactly.
And what is the benefit of being able to have this to our customers?
Exactly. Yeah. Tom's like okay with it 10 minutes ago. So
yeah, I don't fully see why all the vehicles need to have this in the vehicles?
They won't have all of them. I think some.
How
of them.
many,
Yeah,
how
some
many you
of them.
buying?
We got about 60, 65 vehicles, and we'll probably do about 40 of them with this contract. And it's going to be the ones that are actually assessing the field. It'll be the leads, the superintendents, the ones that are going to go out, assess it, and then radio back and let us know what to do.
Don't want to put one in the vehicle.
No,
It's
that's what I
hardly
was trying to
used,
think,
or whatever. Or
There's
something.
no point, it's just sitting there not being used. Only time you're using it for emergency probably. And you've got your main vehicles are out there on the road for emergencies.
Yeah, and that's part of our exercises. We're going to be actually looking operationally how we do that. Like you were talking about walking through is when you call in, who's going to do it. That's what's going to determine who actually gets the radios. And I think any new vehicles that we get, we're going to outfit it, the ones that actually need it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Kelly?
Yeah, this is, did you guys try the radio on the cell phone?
No, that
Did you
wasn't
try-
even anything I was familiar with. I just figured if that was still dependent on the cell network, we wanted to have something redundant that was not on the cell network.
Yeah, only because I did radios in the past. It's still, when you're doing the radio on the Nextel first came out, the push to talk, it's still dependent on your cell network operating.
Right.
It doesn't
Oh, yeah.
operate independent of the cell network.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's
I get that.
piggybacking on the cell signal.
'Cause I definitely recognize that it's a specific, really specific use case kind of thing. I suspect as much as you think you're going to use it a lot, you'll probably find out that it's a great thing to have, but it doesn't get used a lot, but it doesn't mean it doesn't need to be.
Well, that's my thought.
You know,
That's exactly my
it's
thought.
very important to have, like, you were pointing out, it's like, oh crap, we covered this risk.
Are these general fund dollars we're spending?
No, these are out of our small tools and equipment. It's out of the operations budget.
They're split across probably water, sewer, and stuff.
Yeah.
Agenda bill, water, sewer,
Yeah.
parks, streets, and beyond.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did you say water?
Yes, sir.
Can't
they're-
spend any money in water.
Public Works, right? Yeah.
Man.
Boy.
Well, that's why I was
Comes
telling
to
them,
know.
I was telling them, Kelly, proposals that I'm gonna throw on the floor tonight, just for consideration for council to think about, in that respect. So, we'll let the professionals consider what the effects are.
Okay.
We move forward, Mr. McClemens, or not, or?
Yeah, we can move this forward, but I wouldn't put it, because it has to do with water, I wouldn't put it on the consent agenda.
Okay. So we move this forward to the next available council meeting, not on the consent agenda?
Full discussion, yeah,
Very good.
sounds good.
Beyond the sidewalks?
Sidewalks, oh boy.
Sidewalks, oh, I've seen this
Yay.
before.
That's
Is that where we're going? So
Yeah.
discussion item on sidewalks. We're just.
I'll take that one over too.
Alright.
So kind of go back on what we did before, and let me try to share the screen if I can figure this out.
Going again. You up and going again now.
Set up. There you go.
That's it.
Okay, so to go back, as a reminder, when we first brought this forward, what I was wanted to bring up, and especially with Kelly, I don't think he was in the original meeting. In 2021, we have $250,000 in our sidewalk budget for road, street, and operations, and that's usually for missing links. We had $250,000 for ADA compliance, and that's basically to retrofit existing sidewalk for ADA issues. And then for 2022, we had the same amount of money, 250 in operations, 250 ADA. So combined, we have about $1 million. And so because of that, we ended up choosing 10 different locations where they match the transportation elements in our comprehensive plan, advice from the public, stuff that we saw from staff that were good locations for actually doing sidewalk projects. And I'm going to try to go down this list here if I can. You go right here. These are different locations that you have. When we brought it up the last time, we had a great input from Tom to also consider Veterans Memorial Drive, and we did that. And that is this map right here. And essentially that goes from Locust down to Angeline. And that ended up being about $1.3 million. Didn't really include the stormwater piece as part of it also, but it was a pretty good amount of money, but it was important for us to take a look at that as a consideration, not only for this project, but even in the future. It's probably something that we really need to consider. So because of that, what we wanted to do was give the CDC an opportunity to provide input on these different projects. And I think last time we didn't have enough time to really go over that. We wanted to bring it back just so you can really give input on that. Time-wise, what we're looking at is trying to do survey now and then start our design now so that we can get it completed by 2022. And so really, if you had some input, we would love to hear that.
Yeah, thanks for doing all the work on this. I really appreciate staff's, thinking these, all the details of that. That's really council level, kind of have some comments on that. And I'm sure, you know the process. We intend to probably go to a workshop after this with what we ferreted out in a small group to a larger group kind of thing. All buy-in, because of course, public-facing projects are pretty. Tom will have his input, and I don't know where he's like sitting on things, because I was a little bit confused about what your position was last time, right? I didn't. Maybe you can clarify where you were at with our.
Well, I would like to see the small ones connected, especially the high necessity ones on here. They're listed that way. The problem is the money's just not there to do the whole thing down from Locust down to Angeline. That's real important to me. It's been that way for years, and it's just that the biggest impact to the citizens. And I like to see what we've done. Do a lot of small ones. That'll be great, but they're not going to see that. Access from this part of town going down the back way to Target and so on. That's huge. Especially people from Angeline.
Yeah. So with that, and feel free to jump in anytime you want, Kelly, because it'll be probably a fast-moving discussion. It was my understanding there was some monies available in the future and are probably and maybe now. John might be able to. We were talking about that coming down off the road there. Large project, the intersection at Angeline and what have you. There may or may not be some monies available for improvements, depending on how you moved it around between the roundabout that we didn't do or won't do, or its timeline and all this kind of stuff. And that intersection is possibly one that has to be improved by development.
So that, just to feed into that, you're right. The intersection at Angeline and Veterans Drive is a project that's included.
Okay.
And that project includes that alignment of sidewalk. So it's already part of an existing project that we've been planning on. I think that the discussion that may need to occur is at the council level. If we're not considering a roundabout out at 214th and 410, do you want to consider moving forward with intersection improvements at this location, leveraging existing transportation impact fees, what have you? There's potential for that, but certainly on that scale, it's something that I would think.
Sure, yeah.
I hear about the Angeline trying to pull out all the time.
Yeah, that intersection down there is
terrible,
insanely busy.
Do we have any grants available? That was what I'd hoped when I talked originally about that, doing that, getting the grants on this one to help offset the cost of it, and maybe what you're talking about down in Angeline.
But is there an issue where we get out of phase though? Because if there is a large multifamily development that goes behind Target at some point, which I understand the zoning support that right now, is that correct, Jason? That right now a multifamily development could happen behind?
There's a multifamily development there.
It could.
That could happen.
Okay.
What has
plans for it.
Well, they had plans, and what stopped the project was the improvements in Angeline.
So they could be on the hook to contribute to that. And then I was trying to figure out if we run down there and fix this intersection, which it needs to be fixed, does that mean they get a pass?
No, what would happen is they would pay their traffic impact fees. So if they built the improvement or part of the improvement, in theory, they would get credits against their traffic impact fees. If we went and built the improvement
Yeah.
with monies that we've already collected, when that project came in,
Okay.
all that traffic impact fee money would come into the city.
Yeah, but we just have to make sure we use the TIF funds to do the project with, so that it's all in the same kind of fund thing. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
It's like, because if we take general fund dollars down there and do this project, then you're screwed because you didn't spend TIF on it or whatever.
Right, both
Yeah.
projects are, both the roundabout at 214, because if I'm getting out my
Yep,
box.
you're doing fine. Yep.
Both the roundabout at 214th and 410, and the improvements here were both
Yeah.
projects that were being funded out of the transportation improvement budget,
Okay.
which included the TIF funds.
Yeah, they're
So-
called out as such on the tip.
Yeah, so if you don't do project A and you take the money you've already collected over the 20 years and move it to project B, you would get reimbursed
Sure.
in theory when the Skystone
That makes
rebuilding
sense,
gets
right,
here.
Tom?
Right, I understand
So
that.
we do
That makes a
that,
lot.
there is some possibility of moving
Getting
some stuff
additional
around
funds over
if
for
the council, if you wanted to kind of pursue that kind of an option.
Well, I would
Oh,
like
are
to,
you saying that are you saying that we could bring the cost of the Angeline, the Locust to Angeline sidewalk down to what we could afford if we also did this intersection improvement and, because it included some sidewalk?
It would be a different funding source.
Yeah, it would be a different funding source, and obviously the overall project that includes the sidewalk is gonna be more expensive. I don't think we're gonna be bringing any project costs down, but we do have a portion of the funding source identified.
it's still gonna cost us $1.1 million.
To a certain, there may be some
Kelly's asking.
efficiencies introduced because you got the contractor out there to do other work, but certainly the materials and.
Because you definitely have to do, in my mind, you have to do the intersection at some point. You couldn't run sidewalk down there and just, this is.
Right, and that's my concern. It's like it's dropping off, really worried about people walking off. I am out, sidewalks dropping off and not going anywhere.
And it's a great point too, because what happens is, if we go out and we try to do that sidewalk first, we don't necessarily know what the alignment's gonna be. The hope would be that we're not gonna have to throw away the whole sidewalk
Tear it
because it
up.
doesn't match,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of the concern is if we have to use this money by 2022, we're actually at the timeline where we have to make a decision. For me, and I'll just kind of show you what I actually had Adam do for us. Our thought at first was if we could do the smaller intersections in yellow, you can see how much of the city we're doing, right? We're doing a lot of the locations. It's spread out. You do the red ones, you're basically only doing one of those. You're not doing a lot. And that's what we're hoping for with the intent of the funds is that we're doing the missing links, we're doing ADA compliance. Usually with the bigger projects, you actually want to have that in your 6-year tip, 6-year plan, and you actually want to plan it out a little bit. And you're right
Makes
about
sense.
veterans. It makes sense because of what I'm hearing is it's not just the sidewalk. You want to have the urban area here, urban area down here, that you want to do a full road improvement. Both sidewalks, street lighting, and that's what I'm kind of hearing you talking about, right? Not just sidewalk on one side.
Right.
But it's kind of up to you. I certainly want to hear the input on that. For our preference, we would love to just do the missing links, but I'm also the
I have
operations
a
guy.
question though on top. Justin had brought up, and I mentioned before about Kwame, and they do a lot of theirs with just asphalt.
Oh,
Can we do it? Because that's why I brought up, I said, I need to connect all these in the city. I'm going to forget the concrete, put asphalt down, get more rideable for bicycles in our city. And is that some consideration to bring the prices down?
we could.
Do we want to do that? Because we get more buck for our money. I'll do the same thing, except for.
Yeah, great point. Great point. Yeah, we do have the road standards that we try to abide by that we make the developers do too. But there is some locations, especially on Angeline, where it is like existing asphalt, and we're going to continue with that as long as we're showing it's a continuance of what we have there and filling the missing links.
That'd be good.
But that is options that we have looked at too.
I understand completely what Tom's saying, but I'm kind of looking at it, I'm kind of thinking, unless there's a real high level of safety issue where, we really have to address the one large project, that I think the safety issues and walkability and the value by all the rest of the projects, is large.
Yeah, I agree. I think connecting all those small ones.
You really
makes more
benefit a
sense.
large portion of the city by doing a lot of these little pieces at a time. So I'm kind of leaning that way type of thing, really, and I love that staff has been able to come up with some options for, what Tom's talking about down there, and, because I think everything's open there, because that intersection, boy, that is a bad intersection. And thoughts about if it's appropriate to actually, like you guys were talking about, moving or shift monies, because it's going to be a couple of years while we mingle with that intersection out there, right? That's 410.
Well, I would like I would go with the small ones. You work on this one, what makes sense for us for the future that way. Because if Skyline's a problem with traffic, this Angeline's horrible, People have two ways to get out of there, essentially. Okay. Kelly.
Where'd Kelly go here?
There he is.
I'm here.
A little
I
picture.
like. Oh, am I gone?
You're good. You're there. Sorry.
You're a small picture up there.
Yeah. No, I like the way the discussion's going. I did have a question. I did want to raise a concern. Until we revisit the parks plan, I'm really nervous with doing anything with that sidewalk by Alan York, because I know that one council member has been lobbying really hard to reconsider how we route traffic through Alan York.
Yeah, that'd be a suggestion, right, is to make sure we put that one on the last of the list, because that's going to be something that, that discussion about Alan York and the other parks is going to happen real quickly in this
We've talked
first
about
year.
that too so much.
Yeah, that's a great point, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering why it was priority 2 on the list.
Yeah, because there was that connection piece too, and Jack probably recognizes now too with that newer development in the north. There's a missing piece of sidewalk now between a really nice kind of thing they created at the lake and the boat launch.
Right.
Yeah.
I think for us is because there was the amount of people that are actually utilizing that, and then the ease of work that we could actually just finish what's out there. And then, the last few years we've been adding more elements of safety out there. So this is just be a continuance of adding ADA facilities, making a wider sidewalk. We were actually considering pushing the fence back, the black fence, to give us more visibility to the actual crosswalk itself. And that was all part of the project. But I do definitely appreciate your concern, and that's something we can hold off if that's a preference.
Yeah, I would agree that we put that one on the lowest last of the, because it's the one that might come in question if, we are able to or some security on whatever we're doing over.
Okay, and we have to spend this money by 2022. Is that the deal?
It's in the budget, right? I don't know if it's half.
You currently have it budgeted for 21-22. It doesn't have to be spent by 2022. There's no constraints on the money. We could rebudget it in 2023 if you needed to.
Is the map that you're showing right now, is that does that include some of the pieces that were down off of Angeline?
Yes,
It should.
that does.
3 million.
I don't remember seeing this map in the packet. Was this one in the packet?
I just had that completed like 10 minutes ago before the meeting.
Oh, okay. All right.
You go south.
Go down. Then go from there, go other direction.
Here we go. There it is.
There they are.
You're getting there. There you go. That's what I was looking for right there.
And the last discussion topic, we actually brought that up, and the fact that Fennel Creek was getting done, and the idea was, should we start building Angeline if we don't know what the usage of Fennel Creek is? But certainly it's something that could be done too, with those missing links.
Yeah, and you were identifying that some of those possible asphalt extensions.
Exactly right.
Pay some money that one.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So have we worked with the school district at all on I know they're on Angeline. There a couple of times there had been issues with students having to walk on gravel, maybe in a ditch, to get from one area to a school bus stop. Were there any instances of that on here that we know of, or have we even tried to find that out?
For us, we didn't talk to the school district on this list. We basically just put together based on our operations budget. But certainly, if there's a location that we don't do, like this Angeline, Safe Routes to School grant is something we would want to look at, definitely. So that's a conversation we can have.
And they move that stuff around a lot too, Kelly, right? You know that
Oh,
too,
yeah.
right? Recognize that, you know, the safe areas to be, and they move those bus stops around all the time, so.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I didn't pick on that in other parts of town because I think this part of town here off the Angeline is always going to cater to a younger family crowd just because of the the price point for the housing there will always probably be more attractive as opposed to other parts of, you know, the other areas that have yellow opportunities in them. I think the price point's probably gonna be, you know, a bunch of old people like me.
You're not having too many kids? Come on, you got your grandkids coming up here. Come on now.
Yeah, I do, but yeah, you're right. Got me.
Public schools, though, you
So
know.
what decision do we need to make here then?
We were looking for input in that, you know, we would definitely prefer to go with as much as we can get done and get started with survey, but we want to give you guys an opportunity to input and we could take that direction moving forward. It's not really one that we need an actual decision on, but definitely if you have something to tell me, love to hear it.
Hey, Tom, you know, if you had to choose between these Angeline projects and the projects over by Church Lake Road, which ones would you choose?
I would take Angeline.
I think, Jack, you're saying we can do all the yellows?
Yeah.
In a million?
Pretty close except for the Angeline one. We could
Well, the
do,
one,
But if we
I'm
move-
talking about
if we move
on
it
Angeline Road.
you move it down, yeah, we could do a lot of the Angelines.
Because back to what you're saying, Kelly, is I see more kids down there walking I do over in Church Lake. I know of anyway.
So Angeline's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could certainly put that at the top, no problems.
What do you think, Kelly?
Yeah, that's why I was asking because I just, you know, yeah, this is and
Down
yeah.
and, you know.
We could do that.
Yeah.
An older boy.
Well, it is because you don't have
There's a
that.
cow pasture down there. You
Yeah.
can't talk about it. So when I drive Brittany to school, it's all cow pasture.
Boy, there's
Cheaper
old
than
homes
part of
down there.
town.
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah,
good.
move them up.
So if we prioritize this, what would the time horizon be for like the Church Lake? I
It'll just depend on where the engineer's estimates come in, Kelly,
Yeah.
and how much we'll be able to get done. I'm assuming, sorry, Jack.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm assuming that if there's funds left over that we could extend to these projects further down the list, then Jack would move forward
Yeah.
trying to get those done
Only
next year.
97,000.
Pretty much any ones that you see in yellow, we're gonna go get a survey like right now on, and then they'll do a design, and then we'll get an estimate. Preference is gonna be Agilene. Sounds like Church Lake is a preference, and then Allen York will be pushed down the list. And yeah, we could actually hit about 8 or 9 of these.
Oh, yeah.
And if we keep this funding level up in 23, 24, you know,
Yep.
Yeah, certainly
Keep
one of
it
the big
going.
drivers here is that
Yeah.
for years this money has been budgeted, but a lot of times this guy that was sitting in this chair would steal it for other
Right,
projects.
sure. That was the
So
problem we talked
I
about.
fended him off this year, and we've got it for sidewalks, and that's what we want to continue to do.
Yeah,
Because
always
we
use
want to
sidewalks
do
for
this.
the
Yeah.
ground. It's no big problem.
Yeah, it's fine.
Good job.
Sounds good. Yeah, good work. Yeah,
Who-
that'll be nice.
who'd you fend off? You fended off Jack for the sidewalks? Is that what you did?
John Woodcock, our
Mr.
city
Woodcock,
engineer,
yeah.
he likes to get that
Yeah.
money.
Yeah, he helped me out.
You know those engineers are always.
Dan, did you say you wanted this
Oh,
to go to
don't-
a workshop still?
Well, it sounds like we don't have to. I don't
Okay,
know if we
perfect.
wanted to because.
Yeah, if we don't have to, that's great.
no,
We'll get going
it's
on it.
okay with that.
Well, yeah, this is with us, within us here.
That's what we do at CDC. So if the rest of the council has a problem with it, I guess they
You can take it off.
Appreciate it. Thank
yeah,
you.
no, that'll be great to get them
That's
laid out so
leadership.
that way you'll have an ability to go out to the contractor and offer multiple projects. And whatever timeline works best for getting the best price, you know, that's always one of the keys too, is not approaching them when they're.
Good job, Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so we'll move along to resolution Neptune to upgrade AMR software. That's pretty self-explanatory, right?
Yes, I actually came to you guys about a month ago with
Yeah.
it. This is just the contract and the resolution. Go ahead and approve it. Once you guys, it'll go to the council with the budget amendment. Third.
Once this gets approved, and how will this be at this point more beneficial to our citizens since we're not all on radio read on all the meters yet?
Well, that's what the next part. This is the first step into doing the rest of it.
Okay.
We can't. What Neptune told us is we could go ahead and replace all the hardware and stuff, but it still won't work until we get the software. So we have to get the software. The nice part is with some of the older touch reads.
That's what Sherry told me now. I remember that we discussed it last time. My God.
Yes.
I remember, Sherry.
It's going to be unbelievable. The software is, it kind of eliminates. Right now, we've had some issues getting data logs to us because of the software we currently have. I had to, for the past 2 weeks, we've been trying to get data logs. We got 15 of them today. I had to call 15.
Wow.
And they've been waiting for these for over a month because we haven't been able to get them out. So, you know, and I'm going to be honest, a lot of this stuff that I'm dealing with customers is that it's from 3 months ago, from July and August, is their watering. And I'm now in November explaining it to them. And it's very hard. This way, I would be able to explain it like that day. They're calling, they got my bill. Okay, let me see. I can go in, I can see what's going on.
I've heard about some of these playing all night long. Yeah, I've heard about it.
And Sherry has a question. Sherry had something.
Oh, no, I was just going to remind you, Councilmember Watson, this is the first step in going towards monthly billing, which was the initiative of Councilmember Swatman a couple years back. So this is our first step. We're 5 iterations behind on the software upgrade. So we're just requesting this. And it does come with a discount if we do it this year, which is why we're pushing forward.
Okay.
No, yeah, it's very smart because it's my understanding, and I kind of probably missed that, you know, we weren't doing things like this to make sure we keep up on our systems, because, you know, there's things out there, and this is like a software as a service, kind of a web-based hosted, cloud-hosted kind of a thing, which is definitely my preference for services. It'll be really super easy and almost invisible for the upgrades. You know, they'll just be like, hey, we got this new version out, and they kind of handle all that.
Yep.
And they take care of it, and then you get all the new features because you are paying an ongoing kind of thing. You know, it's a different kind of a model because before you probably bought the software, had it, it's on some computers, Chuck's taking care of it. And then when you wanted to upgrade, you probably had to pay the price. And this is just kind of like paying whatever, I don't know whether yearly maintenance
it's a yearly maintenance fee, and part of this contract is we're paying for the next 3 years.
Right.
That's part of it already.
So somebody put that on their notes that they're going to have to remember whoever keeps, I don't know, soccer or somebody, you know, it's like, you know, 2025, you need to make sure to include that in the budget so that you don't.
No, we got our little tickers on our good there.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, that'll be good. Kelly, you got any comments yet? He's okay with that. You know, he's awful dressed up in your like coat and suit and everything there. What's up with that? You know, department, you're supposed to be in jammies.
Jets.
Go Jets. Question, I don't know if Jack knows or not, but you know, we're hopefully, and you guys, doesn't really matter. It's not getting too terribly proprietary, so I would ask the question, you know, because I know there's an issue with the proprietary technology of some of the meters and stuff that we use. So I'm going to look at you and say you're not buying something that you don't want to buy, right? You know, because now's the time to say, hey, wait a minute, we should have looked over here at this system because it was more open. Right?
Thanks for asking that. I appreciate it. Yeah, we've actually had a lot of conversations with the network, and we've actually gone through the actual equipment and the changes that would have to happen in order to make it work. And yes, we are completely good. It's going to work for the same. Good value.
Remember, I asked you, so you're good.
I know it. I know.
I gave you the opportunity.
Now, so we can.
All good.
Yep, I would think so.
With consent on that, Kelly, it's water money.
Yeah.
requirements?
Oh, you
Consent,
got
is that
me on
okay?
that, John. I
It's
think
something we should have done.
I'll let the chair decide on this one.
Okay, thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, consent agenda, please, and we'll, that just pull it off if they find a problem with it, so that's. Ordinance for flood code update, how thrilling, right?
Yeah.
Jason's here.
Yeah, this is really a housekeeping item.
I fell asleep through this one.
Yeah, there's a model ordinance that's prepared by FEMA for all flood codes in order to make sure that you're consistent with the National Flood Insurance Program, which you have to be to make sure your residents can get flood insurance, because FEMA's flood insurance is really the only flood insurance available. There was a new model ordinance that came out in 2019. We reviewed the model ordinance and we are updating our code to be consistent with the model ordinance. As we explained to the Planning Commission, there are some strange things in the model ordinance because they're part of Region 10 that necessarily we don't think we'll see here in Bonney Lake related to farmhouses and stockyard, raised stockyard elevation areas. But
Too many I've seen anyway.
it's a mandatory component of the model ordinance. The model ordinance applies to Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. So in those areas, you could have those things. So we had to add those to the codes. Most of the codes really don't change the substantive regulations. They're more clarifying where we're getting things. We don't have a lot of areas within the floodplain and where there's development in the floodplain, but those areas that need to have the insurance, we need to keep this code updated to be consistent with that model ordinance. I'm looking at John because John knows the last time that we weren't, and we went through a 6-month, what they call community assistance visit, where they dug through every one of our permit files and we had to defend every one of our permit decisions. So this is a simpler way of keeping us on the good side of FEMA and the Department of Ecology without a significant really change in how we're doing.
Planning
So
Commission.
Jason, can you help me here? I was trying to understand the, we have the farmhouses and stuff in there, and you're saying we're going to put that in because it just stays consistent with the model that we get. Because I was like, wow, it seems to me like I don't think we have a lot of farmhouses.
I agree with you 100%, but it's a mandatory element of the model ordinance. So because it's a mandatory element, we have to have it in our code in order to be consistent and get all the boxes checked. I will agree with you. I don't think I'll ever really use that section of code.
Okay. What parts of the city, if you had a map, could you show me what parts of the city are at risk here? Because I was trying to think through it.
So the parts of the city that are the floodplain, the big one is the Fiddle Creek corridor, which is partially why we're doing the things that we're doing with the zoning maps. The other part is the area by the 64th pothole. All those properties up through there that got flooded a couple years ago, the North Hill pothole. And then both the outfall streams for Lake Deborah Jane and Lake Bonney are part of the regulated floodplain. So there's a corridor that comes down all of those. And so any of those homeowners who want to have flood insurance, that's why we keep this program active. It really does because the floodplain in those cases is so narrow, the critical area code keeps development out of it. But in order to have the flood insurance program, we still need to have the model ordinance. So it's not a huge swath of the city. There's very few sections.
So there's the senior center is not in the floodplain.
The senior center is right at the edge, and that home that's right in front of the senior center is one of the ones that got us in trouble with the CAV a couple of years ago because it's right in the middle of a floodplain.
Yeah.
And so I think there's I'll be honest, I think there's some of this like the farmhouse and the livestock stuff that's kind of silly and goofy. But it's part of what FEMA requires us to have in the ordinance. It doesn't increase the regulatory burden on the citizens because we don't have those things. So it's,
They're all in Pierce County.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's language, yes. It's more regulation, yes. but it's not something that we're likely to see in the city.
I won't build my farmhouse behind my house.
Well, so that was like I had a couple questions on that. Is like, why are we limiting replacing farmhouses the size, right? Because a good farmhouse you would think would grow over generations. So and then we're by doing this we're limiting the fact that somebody, if they do replace a farmhouse in the floodplain, it can't be any bigger than their existing farmhouse.
I will be honest, when it came to those, I wrote them in the code and said, yes, check the box.
Okay.
'Cause we're really not, I don't see us really relying on those two code sections.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to know where we were at. So unless unless that house at the end of Lake Jane turns to a farmhouse or the 64th pothole.
Yeah, it says someone starts a farmhouse. Like I said, it's one of those things that's unfortunate, but it is there, and so we had to.
They could build when they're on Locust Extension around Lake Bonney.
I guess, yeah. But then it wouldn't be a replacement farmhouse; it would be a new farmhouse. So
Yeah,
it'd
it'd
go
be a
back
new
to
farm. Well, there is one there is one like farmhouse over there, right? Right across. So, do they still have livestock there?
They do. They have llamas, horses, and donkeys.
Yeah.
I think
But they're not in the floodplain, are they?
I think
Well-
the only one that I could think of that may qualify is the one right at the end of. I want to say it's Lake.
Lake Bonney.
Is it Lake Bonney, that one, right?
Yeah, the lake. There's a house. There's a property right at the end of Lake, at the beginning of the Lake Bonney outfall, where the stream goes underground.
Right.
Technically, that's all floodplain, and I think they may have used it for agricultural purposes at some point in the past. But I know for that one for sure, the family that owned it, the parents passed away, and they're trying to sell the property for development right now. So that would be the other big property that's impacted.
Is that where's that at? I'm not familiar with where that's at.
Right at the outfall right at the Bonney Lake outfall.
Yeah.
You come down Locust Extension.
Yeah.
It's right there in front of you.
There's a big grassy
Got it.
field on the other side of the road.
Right. That's what I thought you were saying.
Yeah, all
Okay.
under there is where the pipe is, but that whole property is pretty much floodplain.
Yeah. We put like 4 houses in, you said?
Maybe.
Maybe you and I talked about that.
Yeah. Well, we could go to workshop, whatever you guys want to do with this one.
Well, as long as they're not farmhouses, you're okay.
As long as they're not farmhouses.
No, I'm good. We're good. I'm good with this one.
What do you guys?
Anything,
I'm going to
Kelly?
trust you on this one, Jason.
Great. There's going to be something that blows up, and
Pressure, Jason.
my track record's going to come to an end.
Are you okay with consent on this, Mr. McCollum?
I don't think so. Yeah.
I think he was talking about me.
He's like, yeah, no. Yeah, okay.
Okay,
So next meeting then?
Yep, next meeting,
Next
consent.
consent,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep, okay. And then we had open, anybody has anything?
Approve minutes.
Minutes?
Yeah, one correction, she hasn't.
Okay. Good. Open.
I have
committee
one
discussion.
thing, quick thing.
Mr. Watson.
Thank you. We have discussed the apartments at Allen York Park as they continue to develop. And we have already had problems in Allen York Park with parking. We've had Renwood problems over here. What are we doing to resolve? I mean, I
So,
drive by, but I
I
feel
get-
like we're gonna even have more of a problem we've
I
already
can-
had.
I can explain kind of where we got and how we got it, and John was part of these conversations too. The original developer, when they came in, did it. They did tandem parking for all the units. We had a huge argument with them that we didn't want to allow tandem parking. There was nothing in our code that prohibited tandem parking, so now all the units have tandem parking, which means you have one parking stall in the building, one parking stall in the driveway behind it. In order to mitigate that impact, what we have required is that every stall be labeled. That as part of their lease agreement, and we've actually seen the lease, we made them give us a copy of it. It specifically says they can't park in Allen York Park, they can't park on Bonney Lake Boulevard, nor can they park on West Taps Highway in their lease agreement. And it also says that they're specifically only allowed to park within their assigned parking stalls. They're required to put a sticky tag in the window of any car, and they have to enforce that all the cars have that. So we know it's an issue and we have pushed as hard as we can. This is one of those times not having regulation on the book bit us in the not having a regulation that said no tandem parking. I went round and around with the engineer for about 7 months on that, and there was nothing in the code that I could say you can't do this other than my logical brain.
Can they pull out from there to Bonney Boulevard?
They can't, it's split. So half the development goes out to West Taps Highway, half the development goes out to Bonney Lake Boulevard. We've done, we know, so that's why we've put no stickers. And the stickers actually that go in the car also say, you can't park in Allen York Park, you can't park in Bonney Lake Boulevard, you can't park in West Taps Highway.
But you have visitors gonna park overnight. That's gonna be the problem.
That's gonna be the problem.
Like the ones in Auburn.
We did get some visitor stalls. I want to say there's probably 10 visitor parking stalls in there. What I would suggest is, if it becomes a problem, then we have to look at how we're managing parking in Allen York Park. We're pushing that development as hard as we can. We even required it between Ball Field 4 and the development that they put up a fence so that people can't park in Ball Field 4 and walk through the backside into the apartment complex. So we did require that they have, one big difference between this project and Renwood is this project was required to show where they have 2 parking stalls per unit and visitor parking. Renwood snuck under a bad regulation that allowed for a 50% reduction. So they only put in half the parking that they should have put in. So that's part of the problem with Renwood, which is a different situation. But we do know it's an issue, and it's only going to come only as time. I'm interested to see how this is going to work because I think we're also going to get.
Gives me chills when I drive by.
Yeah, we're also going to get calls from the residents during the peak season because especially the homeowners, the ones that rent off of Bonney Lake Boulevard, are going to be impacted by boat launch traffic. And I will say, I don't have a lot to defend on this one. I inherited this project. But it's going to be tough, and I think we'll have to monitor it and then do work. They're well aware of it. Trust me, I have gone round and around with both the past developer and the current developer, and we wouldn't sign off if you go out there and they literally spray painted on the ground where everybody is supposed to park.
So, Tom,
Yes.
it looks like to me, though, that it sounds like, parking regulation, public parking.
Right, when we talk about.
You mean
Meters and
public
stuff.
safety?
Right,
whoever,
and they have to
something
take care of
like
that, right.
Yeah.
So that would be the
Not us.
recommendation that I'm hearing coming forward, that respect, because, staff has done everything they can do with that. And then the human factor is going to cause people to, well, I'm going to park in Allen York. What the hell? I'm going to park over there overnight.
Right.
Can I do that today? I think I can do that today. Maybe. I don't know.
But I don't
Well,
think-
you could because there's nothing else. So it would be part of also, if we have to manage this, I'd looked at, Chief and John and
Take it over there overnight.
is putting up signs no overnight parking or the parking lot closes at a certain time.
No,
Whether or not you want to do gates and make it paid parking, there's lots of ways you can manage that parking.
The one at Allen York seems like you're going to want to have it no overnight parking lot.
I just want to know what their plans were, because I have not heard this conversation come up before, so.
Yeah, but again, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, well, who cares what the development's doing, frankly?
Right.
It's the public space that you're trying to deal with, right? The private development is going to do their thing,
And we've had a problem
and
with.
when they
with
flow onto the public piece, that's when the problem becomes.
One of the things to consider too, I use this as the idea that we did have money in the look into making the parking lots at Allen York Park paid parking. And that money is in there. I think we approved, or the council approved $60,000 for that effort. I only say that as something that may be a long-term solution to a problem I know we're going to have, which is people will be parking
Right.
in that lot
Well, we got
overnight.
that lot and the other one too.
And the other thing that we may want to consider as a management tool is adding sections of Bonney Lake Boulevard and West Taps Highway to the no parking zones, because there's technically nothing in the code that says you can't park on a public street. And
Unless you happen to be a neighbor or something.
yeah,
These people are crazy.
yeah. So
they're like, they're putting stickers on your car. You can't park here. And it's like a public street. And you're like, what are you talking about? I go up to Panorama Heights and there's a guy with a trailer parked in the road, you know. It's a licensed trailer. I'm like, really? Probably, I bet you, because the HOA says that you can't park your RV in your driveway. But, oh, hey,
well,
public
technically,
street.
just the RV is only supposed to be there for 72 hours in the right
Well,
way.
yeah,
We don't have a party, but that's another thing is we may have to get an ordinance to amend those road sections to allow the police to ticket and tow cars that are parked on those roads.
More problems to come, I can see, if we already talked about the problems, as it is. It's already a problem. Yeah, it is. Making a one-way street, you know.
anything else, Kelly?
No, thank you. I'm good.
We'll have to make the, we're gonna go downstairs, so, you know. We'll see you down there. Yeah, I don't know how you're gonna go down there. Yeah.
I'll see you down there. Thanks, guys.
Okay,
Good
bye.
job. Bye.
Right? I know. He's gonna take